As someone who loves her handhelds, like the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck, having a proper portable PlayStation is kind of a dream. There's the Vita, yes, which is long gone, and lots of PS exclusives and multiplats are available on the Steam Deck. But the Steam Deck isn't cheap, and it's also not something you'll have in your hands shortly after purchasing it. So the Backbone 1, PlayStation Edition for iPhone, was an immediately appealing middle ground for me when it was announced, even though I already have a Steam Deck. I don't want to re-buy all my PS exclusives on another platform after all. I have them on my PS5, so now I can put that vast library to use on a handheld. So this is the Backbone 1, PlayStation Edition for iPhone. It's a cute, economical PlayStation controller that's built for use with your iPhone and the PS Remote Play app. The controller connects to your phone and the phone connects to your PlayStation 5, which then streams your console directly to you. That's more or less how it all works. Obviously, it requires a good internet connection both on your phone and on your PS5. But today, we're reviewing the Backbone, not the PS Remote Play app. The Backbone 1 itself is $139.99 Canadian and can be ordered directly from Backbone's website. When I ordered it, the process was very straightforward, and it actually arrived 4 days later. The Backbone 1 arrives in a box not much bigger than the controller itself, and it requires no assembly. Just pull it out of the box, awkwardly extend it, and slide your iPhone in. Just a heads up, you cannot use it with a case around your phone. And then you just start playing. That's right, it's just plug and play. Well, okay, it might prompt you to download the Backbone app the first time you plug it in, but there's no actual setup required. In my case, each time I want to play, I simply plug my iPhone 11 Pro into the Backbone, open the PS Remote Play app, and start playing my favorite games. As for the controller itself, it uses the standard Lightning connector for the iPhone, which is where it draws power from, so no need to charge it, and it has most of the buttons available on the DualSense. It also has a 3.5mm headphone jack and its own Lightning port, so you can charge your phone at the same time if you want. It's a very flat controller, which makes it great for slipping it into your bag and taking it with you wherever you go. It also feels safe to hold in one hand. Unlike the Switch, when I hold it with one hand on one side, it doesn't feel like the controller will snap off. Back to the buttons. All of them are mostly the same. It's only missing the touchpad, which you'll need to activate by using your phone's touchscreen in the PS Remote Play app. It's a little inconvenient, because you'll have to tap your screen once to reveal the button, and then touch the screen again to actually use it. But its positioning is where it would be on the DualSense, which kind of makes it feel at home on the phone's screen. The Backbone also appears to be missing the PS button. However, on the bottom right of the controller you can see the orange Backbone button. When pressed correctly, it will act as the PS button. It's actually a small complaint of mine. PS5 players know that a quick tap of the PS button brings up the quick menu, and a long press lets you leave the game and go back to the home screen. Well, the Backbone button is much more finicky than that, and it'll take some getting used to, as a quick tap of the button opens the Backbone app, effectively severing your connection with your PS5. Let's hope you're not in a critical level of your game. I actually had to go to Reddit for this solution. A quick tap of the button pulls up the Backbone app. A short press and hold, correctly timed, activates the quick menu, and a long press takes you from the game to the home screen. Aside from that, the buttons are all very similar to the DualSense. The biggest difference is, the D-pad has its traditional shape, but the buttons feel the exact same when pressed. The X, circle, square, and triangle buttons feel much more clicky than the soft feel on the DualSense. And finally, the L2 and R2 triggers have much shorter presses, and they are no longer analog. Honestly, as a side note, the controller actually feels like the Joy-Cons do in the shape and size. So depending on whether you like or hate the feel of the Joy-Cons, you might be able to judge whether or not you'll enjoy the Backbone. I like how the screenshot button on the controller saves the screenshots to your phone. It's also a bit weird that the start and select buttons are at the bottom instead of at the top of the controller. A bunch of times I reached for the top to pause a game, but realized the buttons aren't in the same place. This isn't a deal breaker for me, but it will take some getting used to. At the end of the day, to me, this is actually all a decent compromise given the compact nature of the Backbone. However, for the price I mentioned earlier, $139.99 Canadian, it lacks all of the DualSense's exciting features. The Backbone has no rumble, haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, speaker, or gyro support. And again, this is likely due to its size. But all that said, this controller is $50 more expensive than the already costly DualSense, so I expected some, if not all, of these features to be present. So I'm quite disappointed on that front. It would actually be more economical to buy a DualSense and a cheap phone grip, which would more or less give you the same experience as playing your PS5 on your phone, as well as saving you at least $40. Once I was playing some games though, I was having a lot of fun despite these issues. It was a lot like having a portable PS5. I started off by playing games I know and play regularly, so I could tell by instinct what was different. So, for my test, I played Hot Wheels Unleashed, which is a daily staple for me as I grind out XP for the daily challenges. Then I moved to Astros Playroom, a game that makes heavy use of the DualSense's unique features. And after that was Spyro, a familiar favorite. And then, to wrap it up, the PS5 version of Uncharted 4. With Hot Wheels Unleashed, I've actually played this game in handheld before, on the Nintendo Switch. With the lack of analog triggers on both the Switch and the backbone, as well as the small and thin feel of their respective grips, the experience was almost identical. Obviously, streaming the game to my phone from my PS5 meant the graphics were way better than the Switch. But that aside, I still found the same issues. Playing this game while constantly holding the right trigger eventually makes my hand hurt. This game really requires the comfortable grip of the DualSense or the Pro Controller. But if this is something that doesn't bother you, Hot Wheels was otherwise a great experience. For Astros Playroom, I was sorely missing the DualSense. Without things like haptic feedback, rumble, adaptive triggers, speaker, and gyro, the game was enjoyable, but devoid of so much of its soul. The game still works as a fun platformer, yes, but it's really a showcase of what the DualSense can do. So if you were to only play this game on the backbone, you'd really be missing out. Not to mention, the phone screen version of the touchpad didn't work well for me, but your mileage may vary. But if you just want a taste of platforming on the go, I'd still say it's worth it. Okay, I'll admit, I don't really sound super positive on the controller so far, and it definitely has some downsides, but at a certain point into playing each game, I completely forgot about all the negatives, and I was just having a really fun time getting to play all my favorite games in handheld mode. Spyro Reignited Trilogy is another game I also have on my Nintendo Switch. In fact, I picked it specifically to compare the experiences, like Hot Wheels. Spyro was the same as it was on the Switch or with the DualSense. I didn't feel like it was missing any features while using the backbone. It was exactly like playing on Switch, but again with much better graphics. The last game was the PS5 version of Uncharted 4 at Thief's End. This version of the game is also supposed to be coming to PC, but with no release date announced. Playing this game portably is basically exclusive to PS Remote Play right now. Like Astro's Playroom, some of the DualSense features were missed, but I've never felt an Uncharted game is made or broken by its controller's capabilities. These are fun action-adventure games, and they're still fun with the backbone. The use of the controller blended into the background as I sunk into the story, characters, and especially the gameplay, which is just as buttery smooth as it is on the PS4 and PS5. Not to mention, the backbone makes it possible to have all 5 Uncharted games on handheld, since the original 3 games are not currently planned for a PC release. This might actually be my favorite way to play the Uncharted series, even without all the DualShock and DualSense features. My only real issue with Uncharted, as it has a lot of dialogue and strong music, is that you can feel these sounds vibrate from the speakers.
500,000. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. The backup power will come on shortly. It's gone.
It actually helps with immersion when there's action happening, but during talky cutscenes, it's kind of annoying. But this is more of an issue with the iPhone speakers, that the backbone does nothing to soften. Oh well, still worth it for handheld Uncharted. And, as mentioned, after the controller's design and quirks, it's all about your network connection. Your PS5 will need to be in rest mode whenever you want to use the PS Remote Play app. But stuff like this doesn't technically affect the controller, even though the controller and the PS Remote Play app go hand in hand. So, overall, the pros. It's really easy to use, and it's a great way to pick up and play your PS5 games in bed or on the go. Plus, it's well designed for what it offers. But the cons. It lacks key DualSense features while costing $50 more than the already expensive DualSense. Despite the controller's benefits, it relies on a good internet connection to play games. It's also comfortable to hold for a long time, but not nearly as comfortable as the DualSense, especially if you don't like Joy-Cons. I give it a 7 out of 10. In my opinion, it really needs a price drop below the DualSense to justify it. But, price aside, the controller really is a fun little piece of tech.